All right, Nuggets fans, welcome into Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Bet Online. I am your host, Ryan Blackburn at NBA Blackburn on Twitter, part of the Mile High Sports Podcast Network, and I am here recording this one. This is a recording on Wednesday night. Tomorrow, when you see this, will be Thanksgiving. And I just wanted to record this now. I've got an early commitment tomorrow, so just want to make sure that I meet that, but also want to make sure that you get the content that you deserve after the Nuggets win against the Utah Jazz on Wednesday night. A good win for Denver. Needed a little bit of a bounce back after Monday night's drubbing at the hands of the New York Knicks, so glad that they were able to do that. And it just seems like, hey, get a little bit of the bad taste out of the mouth. You understand how this works, obviously, where Denver wasn't always going to look their best, but they got the job done anyway. So good to see it for sure. Really quickly, this podcast, as you know, is brought to you by the good folks over at Bet Online, your number one source for everything football betting, all the stuff that you need. It has been great to see from Bet Online, and we've been very happy for them. This Thanksgiving holiday, why not head over to the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything betting? From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, Bet Online provides you with constant real-time odds and action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. Large selection of odds on everything from football to NBA to college hoops, NHL, UFC, boxing. Head on over to the website today to see why Bet Online is America's most trusted site. Bet Online, the game starts here. All right. Thank you so much for tuning into the show once again. Let's get into this win. We're going to do probably a couple segments here, just two, and then probably go for about 30 minutes is what I would guess. The Nuggets win 122-103. This was a pretty impressive showing from Denver, but it didn't start that way. Started really slow. Denver lost the first quarter 35-34. And when you're missing on the other side, Lauri Markkanen, Jordan Clarkson, John Collins, they had a whole bunch of guys missing that you would expect to be really driving their offense. And instead, it's Colin Sexton and Keontae George and Walker Kessler. Those guys drilling it. Micah Potter, 16 rebounds in this game as the starting power forward for them. 9 points, 3 of 6 from 3. And so they had guys that Denver needed to respect. They didn't really respect at the beginning, and Denver got kind of burned. And I thought that Jamal Murray's defense at the beginning was pretty bad. But, I mean, let's face it. Everybody was pretty bad on defense in the first quarter. Denver's offense also struggled initially. Murray struggled initially. Porter struggled initially. Some missed layups from Christian Brown, Peyton Watson. Actually, no, Peyton Watson, his misses were from 3. And Denver had to figure some stuff out. But, well, it's easy to figure stuff out when you've got Nikola Jokic. Jokic did a great job of getting Denver settled down. 30 points in this game, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 13 of 19 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, 2 of 3 from the free throw line. And a couple of those misses, probably even shouldn't have been misses. One he got fouled on for sure. And there were a couple of ones where it just kind of rolled off the rim. And you would expect Jokic to make those, but 13 of 19 is a pretty good number, I'll say. He had no problems in this game and was dominant. He had 19 points in the first quarter. One of the reasons why he had so many points in the first quarter, he has that responsibility. He's carrying that responsibility really well when other guys struggle. You saw it in the second game of the season against the Clippers when he just decided to bomb away from 3. Nobody really playing that well. And then he decided, you know what? If nobody else is going to really score, then I will score. And so Porter struggled. Murray struggled. Everybody else struggled. It really was just Joker in that first quarter. And then another reason why he scored pretty well was because when Russell Westbrook came into the game, he just fed Joker the ball. He did a great job of setting the table, so much so that I tweeted at one point, hey, Russell Westbrook might be the best passer to Jokic that the Nuggets have ever had. Murray's learned how to do it pretty well, and the two-man game with them is still very, very good. Murray still makes some great passes. But with Westbrook, he's learned this on the fly and he's making some pretty ambitious passes already. And it's been pretty cool to see. Um, Not the best game overall from Russ, especially in the second half, but still figured some stuff out. 10 points, 5 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, did some great things. Still gets to the free throw line. That's an important thing. But yeah, Jokic kept them in the game, and then the defense finally kicked into the gear in the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter. Utah scored 35 in the first quarter. They scored 68 the rest of the way. So basically kind of double that. That's a pretty good number. Pretty good number, if I'm being honest, for the Nuggets. They did a pretty good job on the defensive end after a pretty poor first quarter. Murray, in particular, 4 steals. He played the passing lanes really, really well. The only problem that I would really have put out there for Denver on the defensive end, especially, was the offensive rebounding. Micah Potter, 8 offensive rebounds in this one. Michael Porter only had 3 defensive rebounds in this one. He's not the only guy. Like Peyton Watson had 2. Christian Brown had 7. He did his job. Jokic probably could have had more defensive rebounds, if I'm being honest. Murray only had 2 defensive rebounds, but when you have 14 combined offensive rebounds between Micah Potter and Walker Kessler in this particular game, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And really, like, Utah got a whole bunch of second chance points as a result. So it wasn't a perfect outing by any stretch. And Denver, they got kind of lucky at some points. Utah turned the ball over. They had some unforced errors. But I will say that the shot defense was pretty good. Shot defense for Denver was pretty good in this one, especially after they settled down. That was a nice thing to see. And then MPJ and Jamal Murray, they get it going as well in that second half. They get it going, and it was nice to see them really show up. But Murray struggled, and he has continued to struggle shooting the ball from the perimeter. 1 of 6 from 3 tonight. But he shot 10 of 18 from the field, which means he was 9 of 12 from 2-point range. That is a great number. If I go to the box score, or if I go to the play-by-play data, and just look at Jamal Murray's shot chart, yeah, a lot of these shots are kind of in that floater zone, just inside the arc, or just inside the free throw line. Basically, he had 1 long 2, 1 kind of longer 2 that he missed, but for the most part, he's getting within 15 feet and then finishing around the rim reasonably well. Just really, really impressive shot making from Jamal in this one, despite the fact that he only was 1 of 6 from 3. So I'm just the messenger here. Like, I've been very hard on Jamal over the course of this time, and we'll talk about him a little bit in the next segment, but just a nice thing to see for him from a shot-making perspective. And then Michael Porter, also some pretty good things on the offensive end, but not before, like, he really struggled in that first half. I'm pretty sure he had 4 points or so in that first half and wasn't shooting the ball particularly efficiently. But Jokic, despite the fact that he had 7 assists, in reality, he probably had like 12 to 15 assists in this one. I know that sounds insane. But what it was he was just pressing the Michael Porter Jr. button over and over and over again. Kind of when he came back in the second quarter and then into the third quarter, for a long time, Jokic and Murray weren't really interacting in the actions that they were having. It was a lot of Jokic and MPJ, especially at the beginning of the third quarter. I noticed Porter, he got a dunk at the end of the second quarter from Jokic. Jokic had a layup, but then he passed it back to MPJ, and then MPJ kind of threw it down. I think it was over Potter. But he just continues to have impressive plays like that. But yeah, it just goes to show Jokic is going out of his way to try to, I don't think it's assist hunting, but like he's trying to get Michael Porter going in this one, get him his points, his opportunities. And Porter finished the game with 19 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. And those 4 assists, I had to imagine that at least 2 of them went to Joker. There was one that I'm remembering where they both had the opportunity. They both had kind of a 2-on-1 in the half court off of the short roll. And then Porter turned what was an open shot for him into an open shot for Jokic. I think he did that multiple times. And that chemistry is just really manifesting itself. I remember before the New York Knicks game, where obviously it didn't go well that night. But Michael Malone was talking about the chemistry of the Jokic Porter two-man game and what they showed and what they were able to provide. It's nice to see. Very nice to see for Denver, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it continues to develop. But it's clear that they are looking for each other now. It is not just Jokic looking for Porter. Porter's really trying to pay him back, and he has been very good at it. So good to see from him. And then, like, not a ton else outside of those guys. Like, thought, look, Jamal had 22 points and 8 assists compared to just one turnover. That's a really good number. Michael Porter, 19, 7, and 4 with one turnover. That's good efficiency from him. Both of them ended up shooting 50%, above 50%, despite the fact that they combined to shoot 3 of 12 from 3. So really good stuff from the Nuggets in the half court, trying to get each of those guys going. And then Christian, I mean, what more can you really say about Christian Brown? I know that he wasn't the big story of the game, but he played 41 minutes and he had 18 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, continues to stay involved. I thought his defense tonight was pretty good. And this is the 17th game in a row, all 17 to start the season, that Christian Brown has had double-digit points. That is a tremendous number and something that should be given consistent credit, something that should be given a whole bunch of credit for the way that he has brought it on that end every single night. He was considered the weak link before the season started and is still probably the 5th starter when it comes to when the Nuggets are healthy, but just really impressed with the way that he has carried himself, the way that he's handled himself, and he continues to make plays over and over and over again. So taking advantage in transition. He's running out. He is finishing. He shot 2 of 3 from 3, 4 of 4 from the line. It's really easy to get to double digits when you do that. When you get to the free throw line and you make your threes, it's going to be very easy. So he's doing a lot of great stuff. Really appreciated it. And then Peyton Watson, I thought that he would have a bounce back game tonight, and he did. Not necessarily his best offensive night, but 9 points, 3 of 6 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. But he did get to the free throw line 4 times and made 3 of them. 3 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal and a block. Plus 20 in his 28 minutes. He was the main guy who switched on to Keontae George in the second half. George, he hurt Murray and others in the first quarter, and then they switched the matchup, and Peyton Watson effectively kind of shut that water off. So really good stuff from him, good stuff from the Nuggets overall, and it just feels like the starters, especially in this one, found some stuff. You just look at the plus minuses across the board. Denver won by 19. Peyton Watson was plus 20. Michael Porter was plus 17. Nikola Jokic was plus 20. Jamal Murray was plus 18. Christian Brown was plus 18. So that's your game. That's your game effectively right there. The bench was fine. It was what it was, but nothing really to write home about overall. And that's a good sign for Denver. Like, you just don't want the bench to be killing you. And lately, the bench hasn't really been as much of the reason. Like in the Knicks game, it was the starters who were really, really struggling. The bench in this one was nondescript. So that's not a problem at all. Well, really good to see Denver get that win. They are now 10-7. We're going to talk about just where they are, where they're at. 10-7 through 17 games. They're going to miss 3 days off, basically, including Thanksgiving tomorrow, today when you listen to this show. And we'll talk about it all. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to it. We will be right back here on Pickaxe and Roll. All right, we're back. Pickaxe and Roll. Ryan Blackburn here. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Appreciate the love and support on the podcast. People, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it down below. Let's get into Murray and Porter getting going a little bit. This is the second game in a row for Murray where I really liked his approach on the offensive end. I thought he was under control. He looked very definitive on that end. He pushed back on it when the team was struggling, when they got blown out on Monday. But I think if I asked him the same thing again, he would be a little bit more amenable to answering at this point that I think the pace that he is playing at, driving to the rim and getting to the rim and being a little bit more crafty and being a little bit more definitive, I think looks a lot better over the course of these last couple games. The 3-point percentage is still a thing. Like that's still a thing that he's going to have to figure out now on the season. Well, I don't really have it here. Let me just go to his basketball reference page if I could navigate there really quickly and just do the internal math. On the season before tonight, he was shooting 28 of 83, which means with the game that he had tonight, where he shot 1 of 6, that is 29 of 89, if my math is correct. Yeah, so 29 of 89. That's probably close to about 30%, if I'm being honest. 29 divided by 89. 32.5, 32.6. So, look, he's shooting poorly. He's shooting poorly from the outside. That's something that will have to be addressed at some point. He's going to have to get better there. And, like, look, if there is an aspect of his game that I'm not as worried about right now, it's probably the three-point shot. For me, what was more concerning was him not being able to get to the rim, not being able to get off the dribble, and really set up the rest of the offense. Because so much of offense in the NBA these days is being able to run high pick and roll, get to a spot, force the defense to react, and then counter. For the Nuggets, a lot of that time, or when Denver's running the two-man game, if two people go to Jokic and they give up the open jumper to Murray, then he's got to be able to make him pay. If they give him a lane, he's got to be able to finish a contested layup or a floater or whatever it is. And he hadn't really been doing that to start the season as much. So really nice to see him finish well in this particular game where he had a whole bunch of shots within 15 feet and converted on a large number of them. So really good to see him kind of bounce back in that regard. And on top of it, 8 assists compared to 1 turnover in this one. In that second quarter, he staggered with the second unit as opposed to Michael Porter. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Most of the time it had been Michael Porter with the second unit, but Jamal playing with Russell Westbrook, Julian Strawther, Hunter Tyson, and DeAndre Jordan. When Aaron Gordon comes back and you get Aaron Gordon with the starters, that probably looks closer to Murray, Westbrook, Strawther, Watson, and maybe DeAndre. But it also could be Dario Saric. Who knows? I wonder if that's a rotation that they decide to go to a little bit more. So far this season, and Michael Malone has made mention of this, the last 4 minutes of the first quarter and first 4 minutes of the second quarter have been a massive issue for the Nuggets. And most of the time they've been staggering Porter. And it's not his fault individually. I think Westbrook takes on a lot of that responsibility. And then if Denver's not necessarily hitting shots around him, then bad decisions ensue, turnovers happen, and like runouts happen on the other side. So Denver's got to figure out a group that they can play with that second unit. And it's probably going to change from night to night. I kind of like the idea of maybe staggering Murray, and at sometimes they had staggered Brown and Porter. Maybe they're staggering Westbrook. Like you go Westbrook, Murray, Strawther, Aaron Gordon, and then Dario Saric or DeAndre Jordan. That wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to me. But either way, they've got plenty of time to figure it out. And this is something that I have to get across to people. There's still 65 games left to go. The season will evolve in certain ways that, like, look, so much of the pressure on Murray is obviously, like, that's readily apparent. And it's understandable why Nuggets fans have been blowing the whistle in terms of, hey, this looks awful. This looks really bad. But I do think that over the course of another 65 games worth of regular season, the team may look and feel and think and vibe decidedly differently at the end of that stretch. It's not even Jokic yet. It's not even December 15th. So it just doesn't surprise me that Denver has struggled a little bit. And I'm not gonna panic too terribly much here by that. I do think that Denver probably has to There are probably some changes that they have to make. I'm not sure even yet what those are, if I'm being honest. So, going to be fascinating to see what they do. David Walker, who's a good follow on Twitter, he posted Denver's record through 17 games over the course of the last 7 years. And I think this is pretty interesting. 2019, the year they won 54 games, the year they finally broke out, they started 10-7. The year after that, 13-4. 2021, 10-7. 2022, 9-8. That was the year that Murray and Porter both went down. 2023, the year they won the championship, 10-7. 2024, 11-6. 2025, 10-7. Maybe this is just an identity thing for Denver. Maybe this is just something that, like, no matter how it happens, whether it's Murray struggling or Jokic not like fully getting on gear until the latter stages of the season, that's obviously not happened this year, I promise. Whether it's worries with the bench, whether it's trying to get Porter up to speed or trying to get others up to speed at some points, whatever the case may be, it's very possible that Denver just doesn't have it in the first 17 games of the year from year to year. And then they start to get into a rhythm. And I wonder if we hit December and we hit some different times where, Denver's going to go on the road. They're going to spend a lot of time on the road in December. Maybe they find something there. Or maybe you have to wait until January when the schedule is going to get kind of difficult, but they're going to play a lot of their games at home. Maybe they just get into a rhythm then. We'll see how the year evolves, but I think that there is still a world where Denver goes on a run, where they figure out some things. They don't necessarily feel great all the time, but they go on a run, and you could say they won 5 of their last 6. They won 6 of their last 8. They won 10 of their last 13. Whatever it is, as long as you're trending in the right direction and you're banking wins, it's going to be okay. So we'll talk about it. We'll go over it over various points, but I think that Denver's okay. Do I think that they're great? No. Do I think that they're a championship team right now, a championship contender right now? No. It doesn't mean that they can't get there. They're currently 7th in the West. They haven't played like a great team yet. Doesn't mean that they can't play like a great team going forward. They just need certain things to happen. They need Murray to be more consistent. They need the defense to be more readily apparent. And once they can prove that against some good teams, then I'll start to get excited. Last thing I'll go over for this podcast before we end, Thanksgiving. If you're listening to it today, then great. If you missed it today and you're listening to it on Friday or Saturday, then cool. Thanksgiving is always an interesting time in the NBA calendar. There's very few games. Obviously, there's no games on the NBA for Thanksgiving itself. But this is right around the time where teams take that little break, they take that little breath, and then they start going. For a lot of people, the NBA season doesn't start until Christmas. For the Nuggets, the NBA season doesn't often start until Thanksgiving starts, where you kind of go through your ups and downs. And as I mentioned, like Denver's 10-7, 11-6, 9-8 in that general range over the course of the last 7 years, that they've won a whole bunch of games in each of those 7 years. So it's interesting to see that trend evolve. But for Denver, this is a really good opportunity, I think, to take a step back, to get away from basketball a little bit, at least for a day, to be with the family, to let loose a little bit, and to not have to think about the ramifications of a New York game that's coming up on a Monday after you spend some time in LA on Saturday and Sunday. I think that Denver is going to go on a run. And I think a lot of it is going to come from, hey, they got to take a little bit of a respite here. I can be wrong, and my vibe on this team has been wrong for much of it. But I do think that in general, this is one of those times of year where the Nuggets finally start kicking into gear. Jokic is around that time, December 15th as well. It's one of the reasons why it's such an important date for Denver. It's like every year, it just feels like they finally find a new rhythm right around that point. So over the course of these next couple weeks, this next few weeks, I'm going to be on the lookout for something. I'm not sure what it is yet, whether it's a, hey, you know what it was? You remember the championship season when December 8th, 2023 or 2022, Denver goes to Portland. They go to Portland that year. Damian Lillard, Jeremy Grant, Yusuf Nurkic, those guys are killing it that time. And they're just dominating. And Denver, like Murray had been going through a slump. I talked to him earlier that day, and he talked about, hey, still not fully comfortable, still not fully confident yet, trying to get the mental going. And then he goes out and he has a big fourth quarter. He hits a game winning three when the Nuggets are down, I think, 2 points. He takes a game winning three on the left wing. And I remember being there for that moment and just the energy and the shift where everybody could kind of take a sigh of relief, take a deep breath, and realize that everything was going to be okay. And from that moment on, I swear, from that moment on, the Nuggets looked like a champion. They looked like a championship contender. Last year, they didn't really have that moment. They were very official. They had some injuries. Murray had some injuries in and out of the lineup. They were very effective and efficient for much of the season, but they didn't have that moment with anybody other than maybe Jokic's game winner in Golden State. But that was more of a petty kind of like, hey, let's laugh at Golden State for complaining about Jokic's whistle and then getting a half-court buzzer beater against them after being like Denver was down 18 with 6 minutes to go, and Denver finds a way to come back and win. In my mind, Denver needs that kind of moment. They need something. They had some good, like they had the like Michael Porter Jr. game winner on the floater. It was a nice little play, but it wasn't like anything crazy. And that was on a day where just it wasn't like it's still too early in the season. I think Denver, when they lock in, when they see everybody locking in, Murray's going to have it. Porter's going to have it. Maybe Aaron Gordon has that moment when he comes back. Maybe it's Christian Brown. Maybe he gets a game-winning three or something like that, where Denver has to kick it out in that moment. They have to trust Christian Brown, and he pays back that trust with a big shot in the clutch, something like that. But they haven't had that moment yet, and they may never. But I do think in general that those are kind of underrated when it comes to the turning point of a season. I witnessed the turning point of the championship year. I knew exactly when it was happening. I knew what was happening, and I knew the significance of it. I'll wait and see if there is one for this upcoming year. But Denver, they have to get closer. They have to get closer as a team. They have to trust each other. They have to bond. They have to have something they have to have some sort of shared experience where they can really bond together, and then they can look back at that throughout the year and say, hey, you remember that game? Like how big that was, how big of a moment that was. That brought us closer together. I think that there has to be something like that. And it would be great if there was. And it would be great if it happened over the course of these next few games, because Denver needs to get going. If they want to be a high seed in the West, if they want, they don't really care, but if they want Jokic to win his 4th MVP in 5 years, they got to get going. They can't be a 6 seed. It's not going to work again this year. They've got to win 50 games for that to happen, or close to it. And they have to see the winning formula with who's on the floor and then be able to mix and match and win anyway. You can win one way with your main formula, but Denver was too indexed last year. They're too over-indexed on Denver being healthy, the starters being elite, and Murray wasn't good enough. Porter wasn't good enough in the second series, and Denver just had too much pressure on Jokic in that moment. They need to find ways this year for Murray to be able to take over, for Porter to be able to take over, Aaron Gordon, whoever, that they can trust in those moments. If they can find that, if they can find those different moments throughout the year, I still think that this can be a championship team. I just haven't seen it yet. We'll see if they can get to that point. All right. That is going to do it for this episode of Pickaxe and Roll, brought to you by our good friends over at Bet Online. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Apologies for the recording and not the live, but still really appreciate putting out great content for you guys. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I really hope it's good. Let me know what you get. Let me know what you cook up for the fam. Ross and I made mac and cheese. Ross made an Oreo cream pecan pie, something of that nature. And then he also made a lemon meringue pie. So I'm getting ready to taste those. That's for sure. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button on the way out. I will talk to you guys very soon.